years, first-time developers have been saved from disaster by a rising market. But then, in August 2007, just as a new group of amateurs launched their careers, the housing bubble burst. The problem was, none of them realised just how quickly things were going to fall apart.
It was a real shock when everything started falling down around our ears, really.
We've never done anything with property before, and when we decide to, guess what? Let's have a crisis in the property market.
As soon as you have two sellers and only one buyer, prices move down very, very fast as they compete to try and make the sale.
Two-bedroom flats in developments fell incredibly fast, even before the rest of the country noticed there was a crash on.
Buy a house, carve it up into flats and make a truckload of cash. It's the formula developers have been relying on for years and exactly what tonight's amateurs are banking on to make their fortunes. You bought this house with no money to refurbish it or split it up as flats, got planning and then thought, let's just do it and hope the money just falls out of the sky. You're planning on single-handedly turning this house into 3 flats for £60,000.
We are the advertisement for the idiot's guide to developing property.
Speak for yourself. It's November 2007. The property market has tipped into decline. But like most people, Sean and Nicola Haller haven't quite realised it yet. They're about to kick off their developing careers in Newport, South Wales. Sean's a jobbing builder and DIY enthusiast. In fact, he's been renovating their own home for the last 8 years.
We get everything to a point where it's nearly finished and then we move on to something else before we finish. So now we have no front door, no bedrooms upstairs, no kitchen.
No.
And then we went and bought another house to do.
Sean and Nicola are determined they won't have these kinds of delays on their first proper development, which is just as well when you see the amount of work they're planning on doing. It's a large 3-storey terraced house in a truly sorry state. Their plan is to carve it up into 3 one-bed flats, but this means 3 times the work. If that wasn't enough, Sean plans to project manage the entire job and do all the building work himself with only Nicola to help as labourer.
Difficult to know how long something's going to take when we've never really finished anything before. But we think 6 months is ages. So we will finish it, won't we?
130 miles away in Brentford, Middlesex, meet twin sisters Loretta Fenton and Natasha Andrews. They're both professional singers, and along with Loretta's husband, graffiti artist David, they're hoping to channel their creative energy into property developing.
The sort of jobs we do being freelance, we don't have pensions in place. And property, I think, is a great way that potentially you can get some long-term security financially.
But it's 2007, and investing in property is starting to become a very risky business. Oblivious to what's in store, they remain convinced this large 5-bedroom Victorian house is going to make them serious money by splitting into 2 separate flats.
We have absolutely no experience whatsoever at property development.
And no clue.
We're aware it's quite a big project, but how hard can it be?
This trio aren't planning to get their hands dirty. They've employed a builder, but they are planning to share the project managing, and divvying that up is never easy. You haven't done anything like this before, have you?
I think hopefully we are the advertisement for the idiot's guide to developing property. If we can do it, literally, your dog can do it.
Speak for yourself. Are you confident you can make this thing work between all of you?
There will be a few tussles.
There's already been arguments.
Yeah.
We haven't even started yet.
I'm in the middle because I have the loyalty to my twin and the loyalty to my husband, so I have to be peacemaker.
She could have her work cut out. By late 2007, there's an explosion in new build apartments, coupled with a slowing climate, making it very hard to sell flat conversions. Even so, that's exactly what they want to do with this large 5-bedroom house. David, Loretta and Natasha's plan is to split the property horizontally and create a garden flat on the ground floor with a maisonette above. But I think they've missed a hugely profitable trick to beat the market.
I think that there may be a simpler way to achieve the same thing, end up with more value and make your lives easier. I'm just wondering why you don't divide it vertically, because freehold houses always sell more easily than a leasehold flat anyway, and you're going to get more money for 2 houses than you are for 2 flats.
It'd be quite a skinny house, wouldn't it? It's still something that someone would buy. I mean, it definitely would be more appealing than 2 flats.
I believe so, yes. I mean, they're going to be 2 freehold houses, and ultimately you've got pretty much the same square footage. It's just it's tall and thin instead of short and wide.
Automatically, I just thought it'd be so much more work to split it down that way rather than across that way.
I think that you probably would find it simpler to do a vertical split, and I also think you'd make more money on it.
They bought the property for £363,000 and have a £118,000 budget. They plan to sell both flats for £600,000, making a whopping £119,000 profit. But if they divided the building vertically in half, making one 3-bedroom house on the left and another 3-bedroom house on the right, they could boost their total resale by up to £100,000.
You could be getting $330,000, maybe $350,000 each for them, whereas a flat here would be worth maximum $300,000.
I must say that's sort of put a bit of a spanner in the works, and it's something that I had not considered at all.
They'd also do well to consider that their £118,000 budget is very, very tight. I'm not convinced they've thought this through.
How are you actually getting the money to do the work on this?
Between us, we've got about £30,000.
To start the work?
To start the
Yes.
work.
In reality, a development like this, you could get through £30,000 in the first couple of weeks.
There's another property that we've got, and it looks like we're going to have to sell that and use that to have any kind of realistic way of getting the money.
Will that cover all the work?
That will cover most of it.
So you'll get £30,000 of the way through the contract, and hopefully by then you might have sold your house to pay for the rest of it, and if not...
We were approaching our bank this week to see about loans or whether it's an extension on our credit cards.
Basically, you bought this house with no money to refurbish it or split it up as flats, got planning and then thought, let's just do it and hope the money just falls out of the sky.
That's just the little thing standing in our way. It's a matter of getting thousands of pounds to do the work.
In Newport, South Wales, Sean and Nicola Haller have got a similar-sized house, but they want to squeeze even more flats out of it.
So what are you going to do with it?
Ooh, well, the plan is to turn it into 3 one-bedroom flats.
And how much do you reckon that's going to cost?
Probably a lot more than we've got.
60,000
60,000 is the budget, so that's how much it's going to cost.
Sean and Nicola bought the property for £129,000. They have a budget of £60,000 and plan to sell all 3 flats for a total of £240,000, making a £51,000 profit. The budget's tight, but unlike the Brentford trio, Sean and Nicola plan to do all of the work themselves.
Do you have a trade? Or
All trades.
all trade?
Yeah, I'm not a master.
Jack of all.
I'm not a master of any of them.
Right, so you're planning on single-handedly turning this house into 3 flats for £60,000
Yeah,
in 6 months.
in 6 months.
Hey, you're going to be busy.
For years, boosted by buy-to-let mortgages, converting houses into flats was a sure way to make money from property. But by early 2008, the UK is flooded with one-bed new builds. And Newport, South Wales is no exception. For Sean and Nicola, the glut of new flats on the market is threatening to jeopardise their conversion plans.
There's been a lot of big developments where they've built big blocks full of one-bedroom flats. And I wonder whether, for your sake, whether it's best to add to the enormous quantity of one-bedroom flats on the market. I wonder whether you wouldn't be better having a maisonette on the the top 2 floors and a flat beneath. And you're spreading a risk that way because maybe the flat market will lift up a bit, in which case you've got one, so that's marvellous, but you've got the maisonette as well. So you're spreading a risk away from the one-bedroom flat glut that appears to be in Newport at the moment.
I mean, I totally understand where you come from, because it's just our figures were what pushed us into thinking of the flats.
Sean and Nicola want to put a one-bed flat on each of the 3 floors of this property, with inflated sale prices of £80,000 each. I think £60,000 is much more likely, but selling the 3 for £180,000 wouldn't make them a penny. Personally, I'd leave the lower ground floor as a self-contained flat, but turn the top 2 floors into a more sought-after 3-bedroom maisonette, which should go for £150,000. upping the total sale to £210,000. That could at least make them a £30,000 profit. And there's another crucial reason for going with my idea.
A maisonette in a flat is going to cost you less money to achieve, and that's because building regulations are so stringent now in terms of sound and fire and thermal insulation that to turn these 2 floors into 2 separate dwellings, you effectively need to insulate them as totally separate units. And if you don't comply, you start right all over again. And I've been there with flats where one of the walls didn't comply with sound insulation and down the wall came. They'd all been decorated, skirting on, everything. And you just don't need that hassle, really.
Our budget sits nicer with it being a maisonette and a flat.
Yeah, it would make a big difference. Or workload, but especially bearing in mind you're doing it all yourself.
Yeah.
I hate to agree with you, really.
Marvellous, we like that.
You may have a point.
Whatever happens, on a tiny £60,000 budget and Sean doing all the work and management, with only Nicola to help as labourer, this is going to be one difficult development.
So how's it going to work with you two? Are you going to be here all the time?
It's going to be a full-time, proper job, Monday to Friday, Saturday mornings.
And what happens when you don't agree? Because there's only 2 of you, so there's no deciding factor. Who's going to win the arguments?
Well, she'll go storming off, or I'll sack her, and then I'll go home later, and then we'll go to the office.
Oh yeah, we call it the office, which is when we go. I don't know if we can talk about bed, but we get into our bed and we pull our duvet over our heads, and we've got a pact that nobody can be arguing in the office.
It always gets resolved in the office.
I would imagine that there's always a way of resolving things in the office.
In Brentford, it's day 1 for Loretta, Natasha and David's builders. They're cracking on with turning this end of terrace into 2 houses. It's something of a miracle that work's even started, as last time I saw them they only had £30,000.
We have actually managed to scrape all the money together, so we now do have the 118,000 that we needed, which is a miracle in itself. But it does mean that each month we're going to be paying about £1,800 a month, which is really, really scary.
They've borrowed money left, right and centre and are seriously stretched. Sticking to their development schedule and running this project with the utmost efficiency will be crucial. But 2 weeks in, Loretta and Natasha get the big music break they've been waiting for, playing as a support act on Take That's UK tour.
The opportunities we're having at the moment are things we've worked for, we've waited for, we've hoped for such a long time. The truth is that the house project does take second place to where we are.
It's left to David to run the site on his own, but he's not there either.
I've got a lot of work on right now, and it's intermittent, and so I might be able to be here for a day, but then I'm not here on an important day. It has sort of been lumped on me to try and sort it out, and I'll just have to see what happens.
This is making Nick the builder's job very difficult.
I've only seen David once or twice. Extremely hard to get hold of. Never answers his phone. I haven't got the girls' numbers, so that's not an option. As the next couple of weeks roll over, decisions are going to have to start being made about certain things, and it's going to become a problem if we can't get hold of them. A really big problem, you know.
Another 2 weeks pass and work continues in fits and starts. This can be a road to disaster, so with Loretta and Natasha back in London for rehearsals, I've called an emergency meeting on site.
Do you feel you've been here as much as you should have been?
Maybe not exactly as much as I should have been. There are a couple of things that I'd like to get the I's and, dotted and the T's crossed on.
Do you have a schedule of works?
Not exactly, no.
Not exactly means no, doesn't
No,
it?
so...
Would you say that you feel entirely cut out to be a project manager, or...?
No, not at all.
Right, you say you admit it.
But he's the one who happens to have more time, so he's the one who's here.
It would be fairer, and I think it probably more beneficial to this getting finished well and on time, for you all to have more of a role in the management of this. Do you think that's fair or not?
It might be fair, I don't know if it's realistic.
Yeah, I mean, music is what we're really passionate about, Loretta and I, and David with his artwork as well. But also, it is how we make a living.
But that is the balancing act that you've kind of chosen to take on. And I don't think that a site is a very easy thing to pick up and drop down as and when life fits around it. I personally think that all three of you should meet on site together at least once, if not twice a week. This is your project, it's your money, it's your baby, and it's your neck's on the line.
Normally, I'd advise one person to take on the role of project management, but their lives just make that impossible. David, Loretta and Natasha are going to have to work very hard at working together. It's something that Sean and Nicola are finding much easier over in Newport. Sean's working as the builder and project manager, with Nicola as labourer. They've also brought in a spot of hired help, but it's still a tiny team for such a massive job.
Come on, Eric.
Oh, you're not giving me much time to get my breath back.
Oh, you're all right with that? Or do you want me?
It's week one of their build, and having decided to go with the plans for 2 units, they're starting work on a lower ground floor flat. Down here, Sean and Nicola have removed several walls in preparation for their new layout.
New open plan kitchen living area, units all along here, cooker there, sofa, TV.
Nicola's right to think open plan areas can appeal in one-bed flats, but her layout has more than one problem. The main living space is right off the busy street, and the bathroom next door is a fair old distance from the bedroom at the rear.
If you're sitting in the sitting room here and someone comes to the door and someone else answers the door and you're in your underwear, you're very exposed to that door. The bigger reason is that to get from the bathroom to the bedroom, you've got to go through all the living space and into the bedroom here, and in the middle of the night, if you wanted to use the bathroom, you've got to go back through all the living space and back into the bathroom here.
I mean, in my head, I thought that wasn't that far, for the bedroom to the bathroom anyway, really. But I take your point that if, you want to nip into the loo in the middle of the night, it's just across there is better.
Yeah. Could you make a decision now on it, do you think, or not?
Can you make a decision?
We could, really. And if that is a better layout, I'm more than happy to take advice from somebody who knows.
In Brentford, David, Loretta and Natasha are a third of the way through their schedule, but they're still rarely on site to make decisions.
Hold up, centre up, slide a little bit. The right direction. That's you there.
With the major structural work complete, the trio prize themselves away from touring and work commitments to visit the site.
Wow. Looks so different already. Look, it's looking like 2 houses now, isn't it? You know what, though? It's small, isn't it?
We've just got to completely undo in our minds what this house was before, because it was a spacious house before. Yeah. I've come in and thinking, each room was fairly big, wasn't it?
True.
And that place doesn't exist anymore.
Worried that the main living areas will seem dark and cramped, they come up with a plan to add a set of double doors at the rear of each property. But then, surprisingly, they decide to install doors in just one house.
There was talk of having double doors here, which would have been really nice to let more light in. But unfortunately, it was a little bit late in the day. I spoke to the builder about it, and it was going to cost about £2,000 to change it to a double door. So we're going to have to stick with a single door, really.
Installing double doors is a tiny expense compared to what it would add to the saleability of this property, but it's money this trio don't have. And to add to the problems of underfunding, on site the project is grinding to a halt.
Are the carpenters in today?
No.
Because these ones aren't done. We can see everything that he's doing.
Back in London for a few days, the girls aren't happy with the way work is progressing.
I've not been here regularly, and each time I've come, I've had to look really hard to see what's been done while I've been away. And that's really frustrating.
Nick, the builder, is equally frustrated.
As you can see, we've got no kitchens, so we're delayed in what we're doing now. The work's pretty much come to a standstill. If I'd have been left in charge of getting the kitchens, they would have been here 3 weeks ago and they would have been in by now, you know, and we would have been well finished.
David, Loretta and Natasha have sunk their life savings into this development and are hoping it will help fund their retirement. They can't afford to mess it up. In Newport, Sean and Nicola are working 6 days a week, but still not out of the basement. Every time Sean's doing his job as a builder, he's needed as the project manager.
Hello? Yeah, no problem. How can someone ring me and then put me on hold? My phone ringing can get to a point where I can't even remember where I've left my phone. Sometimes I feel like just leaving my phone and actually turning it off. I've had my hands full of tools. By the time I put them on the floor, I go to my pocket, get it out of my pocket, it call's gone. Oh, while I'm trying to figure out how I receive my missed call numbers, someone else is ringing me. Oh, it's just hectic sometimes.
Sean is trying, but failing to do it all.
I think it seems to me as though the best thing to do would be to get somebody else on board to offload some of the project management. What do you think about that?
No.
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 I can't see him doing that.
No, because I'd have to be managing the project manager who's managing me, because I wouldn't be able to even let the project manager do it.
But I was wondering whether you offload some of it to Nicola, because I know you want to help on this project.
He would agree with this, I know, I could see it. I probably am guilty of hiding behind him a little bit and thinking, Sean will do it. Sean will ring them, Sean will sort that out. I'll tell him to do it. I'm quite happy to write the note to say, this needs to be done, this needs to be done. But I fall short of actually doing it because I know he will.
You don't look completely convinced this is going to work.
No, not entirely, no.
Part of me wonders whether it's just that you're a bit of a control freak and you don't want to let go.
Yes,
I
agree.
Sean, do you think you're going to be able to give this up? Or?
I'm happy to give it up, but Nicola's got to be confident enough to be able to take on.
Would you be prepared to take on this extra work?
Yeah, I'll have a go. As long as you'd be confident that I'll be ordering the right thing.
I want to know why I get such good discounts.
In Brentford, there's little sign of progress, and the situation has reached crisis point.
I don't accept that. I'm sorry, I don't accept that.
Regardless sorry, it's because you don't understand. Regardless of whether you accept it, Loretta, that is the fact.
But these guys need to get it together quick because they've borrowed hundreds of thousands of pounds and the housing market is about to implode.
As soon as you have two sellers and only one buyer, prices move down very, very fast as they compete to try and make the sale.
For more than a decade, buy-to-let mortgages have enabled people to buy off plan and cash in on a rising market. But with the buy-to-let market changed beyond recognition in the last couple of years, can you still make money from property without doing any actual work to it?
The changing industrial makeup of Britain since the 1970s created a huge opportunity for developers. It left huge amounts of vacant space where it was easy to get planning and where investment was welcomed.
The original buy-to-let developments in some of the old industrial towns had quite a worthy idea behind them, that these developments would go up, that people would move into them, build it and they will come, and these areas would become regenerated, turned into communities. It was really quite a nice idea.
There are a couple of things that really drove the buy-to-let industry. The first thing was obviously the house price boom. As soon as people see an easy profit to make, investors start rushing in. The second thing was the easy lending criteria. People could easily get a mortgage, anyone could become an investor, amateur landlords start cropping up everywhere.
People didn't start buying these places to live in, they started buying them as investments. So they would buy them and then hope to let them out to tenants who would then cover the mortgage, and so they would get the mortgage paid, the value of the place would rise, they'd make a fortune.
Builders didn't have to put up houses that they thought families would want to buy or that a city would support. They only had to hope that the buy-to-let investors would snap them up. So we saw huge numbers of one-bedroom flats were built, even though there wasn't a supply of single occupancy households to actually live in them.
Flats that were bought specifically for buy-to-let, usually two-bedroom flats in developments, fell incredibly fast, even before the rest of the country noticed there was a crash on. Prices of some flats had fallen by 30–40% even in 2006, 2007.
As soon as you have two sellers and only one buyer, prices move down very, very fast as they compete to try and make the sale.
If you sold a stock to someone, telling them that its value would never, never, never fall, and even worse, you told them that they should borrow £200,000 to buy it, you'd be in the most enormous amount of trouble. You'd end up in prison. But not so with property, because it's not regulated in the same way.
Those boom towns that benefited most from the city living concept will recover. There will be buyers for those homes, but vendors who want to sell in the current market will have to cut prices to find them.
Now, though, it's February 2008, and the worst is still to come. In Brentford, David, Loretta and Natasha made the right call to steer clear of flats to create 2 townhouses. But the bad news is that they're seriously behind on their schedule. Increasingly frustrated by the erratic progress on site, they've called a meeting with their builder.
It's a bit worrying that there's not one single room that seems to be finished.
The reason we haven't finished is I've taken everyone off the job, because I can't afford to keep people here when there's no work to do.
What about all the other stuff that needs to be doing in all the other rooms?
It's trade work. The chippies do one thing, the plumbers do another, and the sparkies do another, and anything else I get my labourers.
You know what, this is just really confusing me, and it would be great if you just went, you know what, yeah guys, it has been a bit slack. But even if you're not going to do that, let's get on to saying what is going to happen now.
The reason it's being slack is because you didn't get the kitchens. If I'd have had the kitchens 3 weeks ago, I could have fixed.
I'm sorry, I don't accept it.
Regardless of whether you accept it, you don't understand.
Regardless of whether you accept it, Loretta, that is the fact.
Having reached stalemate, Nick the builder leaves the job. This has become a truly torturous development. It takes a month to find a new builder, but as they sort out one problem, another rears its head. They've run out of money.
You're struggling to keep up the interest payments on the current loan that you've got, are you?
Yeah.
You need to get this sold fast. You need to get it sold, you need to get the debt cleared, so you don't need to worry about it.
But a quick sale seems unlikely. They've hit on another false economy. They've decided to decorate themselves.
How long are you expecting it to take before you finish?
To finish all of the decorating? About 4 weeks, I think.
Have you got 4 weeks that you can dedicate to decorating this full time?
You mean 8 hours a day?
Yeah.
No.
They simply have to hurry up and get this finished. It's May 2008, and confidence in the housing market is at an all-time low, with mortgage approvals the lowest since records began in 1999. To add to their woes, their own mortgage payments are £1,800 per month. But instead of trying to bring costs down, they're adding to their schedule by opting to decorate themselves.
A professional team of decorators is likely to take probably 5–6 weeks to decorate this. And I know at the moment you kind of feel you're drowning in the bottom of a pit of debt and despair. But to decorate all of this inside and out, it's going to cost you less than £10,000. And I'm not saying £10,000 is hardly any money, because it's not. It's a massive amount of money. But on top of the debt that you've got, £10,000 to service a year is £30 or £40 a month.
I'd love to get a team of decorators in, but we just don't have the money. And I think another loan would be we wouldn't be able to cope.
The danger is, though, the longer this project runs on, the bigger the overall debt will be. In Newport, the schedule is looking much more positive. Sean's able to get stuck into the building work.
Once you're at your lower level, we've got right the money.
because Nicola's now project managing.
Sean wouldn't have done this kind of thing, you know, he'd have just had it all in his head and probably forgotten lots of things. The more I can take away from him, the longer day that he can have. And Sean's just the kind of person that if he's done a full day, he's satisfied. So, you know, I think it's working quite well.
The site is really motoring, and now Sean's tackling the tricky business of soundproofing the two properties to meet the stringent building regulations.
Oh, it's just a complete nuisance. Further on down the road, there's a guy who's doing a similar acoustic floor and it failed by 1 decibel. You know, I dread that. You know, hopefully, touch wood, that it'll be fine.
Sound tests won't be carried out until both properties are finished. If they fail, Sean will be ripping everything out and starting again. But back in Brentford, things are looking bad. Money is so tight, David, Loretta and Natasha have no choice but to move into their development.
When we took on this project, we had no idea whatsoever how difficult it was going to be.
Every time you think it can't go on like this for much longer, then it just does.
I've been at work today and I've got in and haven't really even had time to have something proper to eat, and just now getting on with the painting. We can't pay anymore to have people in here to finish stuff off, and we haven't got the time physically ourselves to finish it off. That's putting a strain on all of us.
I just totally can't imagine us ever being finished, which is really depressing.
In Newport, the schedule is back on track, but now Sean and Nicola are getting spooked by press reports of the first annual fall in national house prices for 12 years.
Average house price down by 7,788 quid in Wales.
Great. In any market, you should do your homework, and when it's falling, it's even more crucial. But the key is what's happening in your market, and there's an easy way to find that out.
You look at the government website for the land registry, which traces actual sales of properties. Since you bought this property, the market has gone up locally by 2.1%. So although it hasn't risen as much as it maybe did the year before, it's still risen. I mean, there are areas of the market that are in decline, but it's quite specific and it's not this kind of house. Your research shouldn't stop when you buy the property. You need to carry on researching the market and making sure you've got a very good grip on what's happening all the time your development's going on.
Yeah.
In Brentford, it's much less rosy. 12 months ago, Loretta, Natasha and David set out to make their fortune from property with no idea of what's in store. Now Northern Rock just collapsed. The banking system is starting to unravel and house sales have dropped by a staggering 80% in Brentford. There's now a real worry whether they will make a penny.
We literally don't have any money left now. We've begged, borrowed, stolen everything we possibly can now, and that is it.
It's November 2008 and they're finished. It may be over schedule, but there's no doubt it's a dramatic and successful conversion into 3-bedroomed twin cottages.
Well, it's looking great. I love the colours of your front door.
Thank you. At long last.
Yeah.
I can't believe it's finished.
I think we didn't think this day would ever come.
And a pair of houses.
It's funny to see when we think about what our original ideas were that actually now we've got 2 houses. That wasn't even part of the original plan.
So glad we did that though.
So glad. We're really pleased with them, even though it's been so hard.
Let's go and have a look on the inside.
Each house has a spacious master bedroom and family bathroom on the first floor. Upstairs, the matching loft conversions are a success, adding a double bedroom to each house. But it's downstairs where the transformation comes into its own. The mirror image layouts have kept the conversion simple and successful. That is, apart from the double doors into the garden. But there's no denying these are 2 stylish new properties.
You'd never
never imagine that this was half of one house, would you?
Not at all. When you're in the houses individually, they each feel in their own right like a really spacious house. We're just hoping now that it hasn't been hard work for nothing.
You were hoping that this development would take 6 months, and it's actually taken over a year. And I think that your project management was probably not as great as it could have been.
Guilty as charged.
And that extra 6 months that it's taken, the market has plummeted, hasn't it? It's been going only in one direction, and it's been going there very fast. How are you feeling financially at the moment?
To be honest, there is so much debt here. We've never been in as much debt as we have. It's a miracle that we're standing in this kitchen for me and that I haven't sold a kidney or anything like that.
Their original budget increased from 118,000 to 145,000, which brings the total cost of this project to more than £500,000.
So you're in this project at 508,000 in total.
It sounds like a lot when you put it like that. Well, it is a lot, yeah.
If you turned it into 2 flats, as you were originally hoping, you'd be looking at a maximum of £500,000 for the 2 flats, and you've spent £508,000. So you'd be making a £8,000 loss.
It's been so much harder than we thought it would be. I think I'd be standing here saying it wasn't worth it. We failed. I think if that was the case now and we were standing here and you had to tell us that news, I'd probably burst into tears.
So the question is, has turning it into 2 houses saved your bacon, really?
They need at least £508,000 to break even.
Is that flats at the moment in this market are really struggling to break the £250,000 stamp duty. By doing it into 2 freehold houses, they've taken it into a completely different bracket, which has then taken them to a different marketplace.
Based on the flats that we're currently marketing in the area, you would have been looking at probably 20% of the prices as we're valuing them as houses.
The prices now are approximately 15 to 20% lower than where they were 12 months ago.
The market is very tough out there. On this area particularly, we've seen probably about a 15% drop in the market prices.
I would value these properties at a combined value of £580,000.
I value both properties at a combined value of £610,000.
I value both of these properties at a total of £640,000.
That's between £580,000 and £640,000 resale.
Between 580, okay.
580, 640. That's between £72,000 profit and £132,000 profit.
The key word being profit.
There's the word profit.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good enough for me.
Team Andrew Fenton.
Yeah. High five.
In terms of a return, it's between 14% and a 25% return, which in this market is flipping impressive. And it shows that you bought well and made the right decisions along the way.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
The big developers who are building hundreds of houses at a time, a lot of them are making a loss. So for you to be making a profit is absolutely fantastic.
I'm in shock.
The valuation is one thing, the question is, will they sell?
I think with the current climate, there's been a lot of scaremongering and we've been like, well, maybe we shouldn't sell. You can't sell now. Apparently it's a bad time.
If I was you, I'd sell. You can't affect the global or national economy. You can affect your lives. And this business project has been successful at today's rates. And I think that as you've made a good profit, you need to
take the money and run.
Yeah.
Whilst they're unsure whether or not to sell, are they more convinced that a career in property is for them?
So will you do it again? Is that it for you? You're going to hang up your developer's hats?
Having watched us muddle our way through this project, do you think that we've got what it takes to do another one? If we were to reinvest the money, are we crazy? Have we just got lucky, or do you think that we've learned enough to be able to do it again?
I think you did get quite lucky with this. I've got to say, I do think that. I think it was a good buy, but more by luck than judgment.
there is something to be said for doing what you're good at, isn't there? I mean, you're great at property development, we're great at singing and graffiti art, and you know, we kind of think we should stick to our own areas.
I don't know if there's an album in me yet.
Back in Newport, Sean and Nicola are months over their original deadline, and the market has turned against them.
Although I was reading all these horror stories in the papers and then on the news, I hope that secretly our house would buck the trend and it would be so wonderful that it wouldn't really affect us.
It's January 2009. The stamp duty holiday for properties under 175,000 has failed to kickstart the first-time buyers market. Government intervention in the banking system hasn't promoted any more lending, and the mortgage market is decimated, with buyers few and far between. Just as Sean and Nicola Haller are ready to sell their development in Newport, South Wales.
It's like the end of a chapter, because it's been something that's looming over us, and yeah, it'd be good to get it away.
Instead of turning this run-down terraced house into 3 pokey flats, it's become a much more saleable 3-bedroom maisonette and 1-bed basement flat. Inside the maisonette, the rooms are bright and airy with simple styling that certainly wouldn't put anyone off. The schedule was a challenge, but the finish is superb. Sean's biggest test, though, was the stringent requirements for soundproofing.
I want to see how good building regs actually are, so if you keep stamping on the floor, we're going to go downstairs and listen to you downstairs.
No problem.
That's really impressive. Yeah. Yeah, you can't hear it.
You meant to come and tell me to stop.
Couldn't hear you.
The once dark and dingy basement has been transformed into a light and bright aspirational apartment. The finish is immaculate and the styling in keeping with a top quality theme.
You took on the most enormous challenge. Not only was this a big development to do, but you only had a £60,000 budget to do it. Do you now look at it and think, how did we ever think we could do it for that?
Yeah, it was, with hindsight, it was completely unrealistic, our budget in the beginning, wasn't it? But then, because we've always done everything on a shoestring, it seemed like loads of money.
It's taken them a year to finish, and their original budget has leapt from £60,000 to £93,000.
I think that's pretty impressive, to create a maisonette and a flat of the quality that you have for £93,000 is, well, not many people could do it.
I haven't had a wage out, so you include that, and
you haven't done a little bit of painting, have you?
Yeah,
done a lot more than that. So really, you've had you on full time on this, but still, £92,000 is impressive, and especially when you think you bought it for £129,000, didn't you?
Yeah.
So it's a total of £222,000 that you're in this project for.
Yeah.
Now, there has been the most extraordinary downturn in the market since you bought. What do you reckon that you might be able to get for the pair of the properties together?
well, I've had to sell quickly, I suppose.
225, 230 maybe?
Break even.
Yeah. Pains me to say it.
So they need to sell both properties for a combined £222,000 to break even.
Wow, this is amazing. Fabulous reception space, really nice flooring, radiators, contemporary, even in a hard time. People want good properties.
This property really is fantastic.
Buyers, they're there, they're focused. They aren't as many as there were, but they are there.
Prices are 50% less than what we were getting last year is what we're achieving now.
If we were marketing this property, we'd hope to achieve offers in excess of £90,000 for the basement flat, and for the upper maisonette, we would hope to achieve well in excess of £155,000.
I value this unit at £235,000, £140,000 for the maisonette, and £95,000 for the flat below.
I value this property at £230,000. That's £95,000 for the basement flat and £135,000 for the maisonette.
Although Sean didn't take a wage for his year's work, I think these estimates are amazing considering the downturn in the market since they started.
You know, well, you can't argue with it, can you? But they're worth more than that.
Is there a bit of you that just thinks, well, I've put so much effort in, I need to see a lot of value out of it? And do you think you're a little bit, perhaps a bit unrealistic about how much they're worth?
No, I think they're worth that money. I think they're worth that money. The market is saying that no one wants to pay that money.
It's a harsh reality given the work they've put into this project, but Sean and Nicola finally face it head on and wisely accept an offer for both flats of £230,000, making them an £8,000 return.
It was on the market for about 6 weeks and we were lucky enough to get a buyer who wanted to buy both together.
And we fetched not a bad price for it considering how the market is now. So looking at that, we should be pleased with ourselves, but... It
is difficult not to get het up with the money side of it and be really downhearted and think what could have happened had you done it 2 years earlier. The fact is we didn't do it 2 years earlier and we had to live with the market as it was.
In Brentford, the trio decided to sit out the crash, and 5 months after they've finished, they're living next door to each other. And Loretta and David now also have a slightly different project to manage.
I don't regret not selling. It's an investment for the future, and I think that it can still be that. It's just a case of waiting a bit longer. We're staying put for a while because of having a baby. It's made me even more appreciate what we've done. It just means that we get to reap the benefits of our work rather than somebody else.
For us, you know, our first project ever at one of the most difficult times, it's really quite amazing that we've got through it, to be honest.
I would definitely do a development again. I'm not sure straight away, and I don't think our finances could handle that anyway.
Or our nerves.
Yeah. But don't let me manage it.
Don't start that again.
When you're developing in this market, it's imperative that you have a 20% profit margin built into your budget. Your schedule needs to either be really fast so you can get in and out of a falling market, or take a much longer term view so you can ride through any uncertainties. Next week's developers set out to secure their future and end up digging a big hole for themselves. You've got a pond down here.
In the basement, there is no foundation.
We're stuffed. That's our profit down the drain.
If you'd like any more information on this programme or would like to be on the next series, please log on to channel4.com/4homes.
Hugh's trying to turn a minus into a plus and discovers his pregnant goat isn't in River Cottage tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. Next tonight, customer service and loyalty are the linchpins in I'm Running Sainsbury's.